Yes, hello Daniel.
Hi, Arthur.
We are back in the streaming game,
Mhm.
and yes, 1 minute up front is always in my streams, so we have to talk a little bit until
Can do so.
LinkedIn is also
Yeah.
synchronized.
I hope
Yeah,
you came good home from Munich from TDWE.
yes,
So,
you too.
well, actually, yes and no, because I got Corona and bring it.
Oh,
Yeah, so
oh,
that was a little
okay,
surprise, but what was quite good is that it was a smooth Corona. So
okay,
after 4 days, I was negative again. I had
okay.
only a little bit headache, and the rest of it was really fine. So
But you brought it from TDVE, so it's possible
definitely,
that I
I
have
brought
it.
it from TDV. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so oh,
Well, actually, I don't
good.
know. Wouldn't be 100% sure because probably I could catch it in the train as well. So
Okay,
yeah.
oops. Okay, and then yeah, good that you're well again. So yeah, and now I welcome everyone to. Thanks for watching us today. We talk about AI on top of BI. It's nowadays it's like a hype theme under the yeah slogan MCP or MCP protocol. You Daniel Bo and developed the concept of AI on top of BI. So I think the first time you told me about 1 year ago. So you can be seen as kind of yeah visionary and in this MCP game, even if you never called it MCP, because MCP is just a name that is defined by Anthropic. So it's not an open standard, but it's a standard for communication between large language models and deterministic tools. It is developed by Anthropic, but also adopted by other. So it can be seen as kind of de facto industry standard right now.
I think so. It is already or it will be standard, but it was really quite impressive experience that I spot a couple of days before my presentation at TDWE. That for that what I'm doing, there's already a name. So, and I
But
think it's quite
MCP was published in November
in November, yeah. So
24, so it's definitely that you were first.
I was first,
It's
yeah. I was definitely
it's
first
the
with the idea. But as a small man, it's always good if you have a marketing word where everybody knows what I'm talking about,
Mm,
because then it saves the first step to pick the people up. And I think it's a good idea now to share
yeah. So you're
my
showing
screen.
us some yeah,
First,
you basically parts of the presentation from TDWI or TDVE,
TWI, yeah.
German conference,
Uh,
and yeah,
So,
here oh you have the
okay.
presenter mode in the public.
Okay,
It's
what?
okay, but
No, no, it's not okay,
just to
really.
remove it, yeah, remove it again,
So,
so you can check and
I just, yeah.
keep your time. Mm.
So, I,
I will bring you back on
mhm.
top when you're done.
But I'm not 100% sure if I'm doing it right now. So,
Mm.
mm,
Okay.
better?
Yes, fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, I think let's start here with this slide where I can bring it together what's today everything about. So here on the left, you have all the BI tools, databases, Excel sheets, what you guys have in your enterprise. So now the question is, how can MCP help to simplify the life? I think in the first step, we need to clearly distinct between tool agnostic stuff and tool-specific challenges. So in the first step, and this was my primary key idea 1 year ago, if a manager, a power user, or whoever has a certain BI request, then he doesn't really bother in which BI tool it is. He wants to have the data or in the format he wants to have. So therefore, the idea was we should somehow define a tool agnostic interpretation of the BI request to check where can I find this information. I will later do a deep dive into that. The next thing is something like visualization, like spelling. These are also in the first step tool agnostic. There are standards like IVCS where they say, okay, we need to follow certain rules to make it much easier to understand the visualization, because it's somehow strange that you are able to read a map in US, in Europe, and in Africa, but you do not really understand two dashboards of your company from different departments. So the next thing is data and dashboard catalogs. What do I mean with that? I think data catalogs are quite common these days from terminology, but I'm wondering why we only are looking for raw data. Doesn't it really make sense that we include dashboards there either, where the logic says, okay, I am looking for a certain information, and then the AI agent says, okay, in this dashboard, you find your stuff. So it probably makes sense to do that there. Good. Next thing is, I already mentioned it before, visualization recommender. Here I am thinking, but I'm really free thinking. So you have your data, and why not use AI to suggest certain types of visualizations? Yeah, that's the topic. So then as soon as it's clear where we find the data in which BI tool, then we can also simplify the usage. That means I'm clicking on a link and the prompt pages, the prompts, the filters are answered automatically. I directly jump to the page of the dashboard, which is basically answering my questions. Furthermore, I think there are going to be two types of MCP servers in this area. One from the manufacturers themselves. On top of that, customers, consultants, integrators, or community can write their own MCP servers for certain tasks. If you have also a look, and I think this is going to be a topic later on, when I'm talking about digital agents, I prefer to talk about digital colleagues, because here I think it's all about when it comes to AI. And this is also my output from TDWE in Munich. I don't really believe in 100% solutions of AI. I rather believe in a smart mix between human and digital colleagues. Any questions to that? Okay, then I go ahead.
No, but feel free to comment, everyone who's watching. I see you on LinkedIn or on YouTube, and will ask
Okay,
Daniel.
cool. So when I was posting that and we did advertisement and also in the big post of Prime over the weekend, the question came up, how semantic layer, do we still need semantic layers in the future with AI? How do they interact, and where's the benefit in combining them? And I'm really a fan in combining them. So first of all, I think there's no clear definition what a semantic layer is. That's also something I learned the last couple of months. For example, I was talking about a semantic layer of MicroStrategy, or meanwhile strategy. Then for me, the key was the attributes, the metrics, filters, the SQL generation, metrics, maybe reports. I didn't really count dashboards to the semantic layer, just my personal interpretation. So when we have a look at Fabric or at Databricks, they have a completely different definition of semantic layer. So for me, and I think for this presentation, it's relevant that semantic layer is there where we define the business logic. So how do we define revenue? How do we define costs? How do we define profit? Stuff like that. So when it comes to AI, here I see AI mainly in supporting us to create them, to test them, to distribute them, or whatever. So basically, AI is integrated in the development team for certain tasks. So the next big advantage from semantic layers compared to databases is that normally to implement the security there is easier than in a database. So in MicroStrategy is very strong there. So we can apply row level filters, object level filters, for example, no cost, or we can prevent that the user is going too deep in the granularity. For example, we can restrict employee data. So where BI can help AI, I think it's in the access layer, because I think it's much easier for humans, also for AI, to access to a semantic layer. For example, open a dashboard, set some filters, grab the data from there, then generating SQL. Obviously, it's not that flexible, but I think it's more stable. Questions to that?
Yeah, I have some
Yeah.
thoughts about the last sentence you said because, okay, for humans, I understand this that BI tools are easier to use for the normal business user than SQL.
Mm-hmm.
But I have some problems with the sentence that it's easier for AI too, because I think machines are very familiar with SQL, or because there are millions of SQL code in the whole internet they learned from.
Okay, I can agree on that. But the question is, what is easier to
Mm.
write a SQL or to open a dashboard? So maybe from an
Yeah,
AI
okay.
perspective, for me, what
Mm.
I saw, I would say it's easier. But I agree, it's probably use case specific. So here I
Mm.
wouldn't get too deep, but I see, on the other hand, advantages from semantic layers that if the AI is doing something, it's easier for humans, but again, humans in this case, to understand and interpret it. So
Yes.
that makes some sense. So now I think it makes sense a little bit to explain what I mean with that. So in this case, my use case is obviously MicroStrategy, and I gonna show now why it's easier with MicroStrategy with strategy to generate SQL or to fetch data also for machines. And this is basically my use case here.
Mhm.
I'm opening a wizard. So for those who are not familiar with strategy, so the key strength in MicroStrategy is to generate SQL at a high quality. So let's build a report now, a very simple one, year, then category, then and here what you, oh, this is here, just did something wrong here. So even to click that is time consuming and annoying. This can also be automated with AI. So let's do category. Let's keep it simple and we add a couple of metrics.
Mhm.
So I'm putting here revenue and profit. So let's do a couple of additional metrics so that it makes more fun to explain the SQL. So I'm putting now last month's profit, last quarter's profit, and last year's profit. So furthermore, I'm adding filters. Let's put a metric filter where we say, okay, we only want to see customers with
Mm.
revenue more than 1,000 at level, not of the report level, but at level of a customer we set.
Mm.
So, so let's keep it simple and let's execute that one here. So now, as you can see, I choose all the parameters on the fly. And now MicroStrategy is generating the SQL and executing it against the database. So please apologize the performance because my server is today not in the best mood.
Yeah, so we're
To
still happy that it works finally.
yeah, that was quite a little bit
Yeah.
nervosity before. So I
Yes.
copy out here the SQL which has been generated, and then I
So,
will describe it
mm,
what I hear, because then I think it's easier to show that. So language is SQL. So let's just discuss the SQL and why I do think this can be resynced in context with MCP. So in the first step, we do our filter on 1,000 euro bigger, and we group at customer. So and we generate a temp table. That means here in this temp table, we have all customers which have done more revenue than 1,000 euros during the last 4 years, because last 4 years is the data in the database. So then in the next step, we are, I need my glasses. We group at year at category, because we choose those attributes to be present at the template, the grid. Here we are doing our metrics, and we are joining everything together. And here is the temp table with the customers. So in the next step, we set previous months. So MicroStrategy can do transformational metrics by joining over the previous month's column in the lookup months. So again, the output is written in the temp table. Next template table is here. We also choose the previous quarter. So here we have a year category for the previous quarter of each year. And last but not least, we've also done the previous year and can display the data for the previous year in each row. So if we go back to, don't worry, I'm finished right now.
no, no, that's fine.
So then
So,
you bring it here together in
mm,
easy
yeah.
grid. Same as here in the last SQL pass. You join
Mm,
together all the temp tables on category and year.
yeah.
So
So what you can see is that one single visual in this example, a table visual is yeah, quite a big SQL query, and this is something not exclusively to strategy. It's also behind a Power BI visual is DEX code that can be translated to either SQL or Vertipack code. So it's yeah, kind of common in every BI tool to have some of the query creation, and the power of strategy is to create SQL that is suitable and efficient for many source systems.
exactly. So when it really comes to, and here maybe is the first topic where we can distinct semantic layers. So MicroStrategy is really strong. If you invested a couple of millions in a database,
Mm.
you have hundreds of tables, where some tables have billions of rows, and you need to ensure that the SQL is best. Here, MicroStrategy is really strong. When it comes that you have to the situation that you have tables in this database, and this database, and this database, you want to build something like a visualization layer. MicroStrategy can do that, but it's not the strongest. Maybe to come back to the question, so how complicated is it to generate such a SQL, which I just showed you, compared to answering the prompt page?
Mm.
So, and here I think why it's easier also for AI to generate SQL over a semantic layer.
Yeah, because it's already limited to certain, yeah, certain KPIs, and the KPIs are known how I define the revenue, because there are lots of definitions of revenue in big companies usually. And
Definitely,
yeah, it's yeah,
definitely use the flexibility of writing SQL. And I
mm,
think we know that this discussions between IT and power users when power users want to have a direct access to the database.
yes.
And yeah, so basically more or less the same. I think there are definitely use cases where AI needs to write SQL, but let me go on the next page in the first step. So, so now let's really dig into the key message I wanted to provide. So, what do I want to do here? So here you see the question of the business user. Please show me revenue, cost, profit for Berlin at level of category, call center, and employee. So technically, this means, okay, we have on a template these three metrics, we have those attributes and want to filter on Berlin. So to get there, what do we need to do? So most important is that AI understands the repository of BI. And how I gonna show now. So what I did basically, I read it out over REST API, the dashboards, the reports, the table mappings, the prompts, so the prompt which I just showed you, which attribute, which metric is in which prompt, the forms, and also the element keys, which is very important, I think, as well. So let's start basically with the dashboard view. My favorite one is detailed data. Here we have multiple chapters. This one is called data, this features, and that's it. So here we have multiple pages, assortment, time, blah, 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 selectors I call them. Then on each page, there are multiple visualizations. Each visualization can be a certain type, like bubble chart, like grid, like whatever. And here we have what objects are on there, attributes, metrics, how are they called, are they on the row or on what. So, and doing this, AI can understand the content of a BI system. So now we have different reporting types, at least in MicroStrategy. So here we have a list of the reports, which objects do they contain, which are objects do they display via default. Then maybe here a question to you to Power BI. So in MicroStrategy and strategy, there always some hassle to know directly which tables, which columns are used. Or so you know the story.
So I used in reports actually. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a very nice and useful third-party tool in Power BI that's called Measure Killer. That is made for to yeah killing all the measures and columns that are not used. So with this kind of tool, you can find it very easy. Otherwise, you need to yeah check the logs in detail.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is quite
Okay.
yeah time consuming.
And I think, well, the first step is to read it out, and then I think you can do multiple things
Mm.
like cleaning up, like knowing, okay, quality assurance or whatever. But I think from this perspective, the tools are very similar. So what is also worth to say is it's not enough only to read out the repositories. We also need to dig in some of the warehouse data. Why? Because here in this case, Berlin is a call center. It's also very easy to imagine that Berlin isn't the call center, it's rather a manufacturing store place. So that means Berlin can have a different meeting between enterprise and enterprise. So now let's do a little bit digging into that. What do I mean with tool agnostic interpretation? So what I'm doing here is I'm using Jupyter Notebook to do in the first step. I'm reading out all the stuff I just showed you. And then I use Jupyter Notebook to use my AI classes to interpret the message. And then we're gonna do in a tool agnostic approach. Tool specific first tool agnostic we are interpreting it, and then with MicroStrategy we are answering the question. I'm not executing all the cells because this would be take quite a lot of time. Yeah, but I will explain all of them. So here in the first step, I'm loading my libraries. Here I'm mapping the cubes which contain the readout of the repository.
Mm.
And here I'm doing the login to MicroStrategy. Now I'm logged in. So here I'm loading some other configuration stuff, which is very, very MicroStrategy specific. Thus, I do not really explain that. Here I'm initializing my vector database because currently it's still stored loaded on the fly because my data is very small, but you can also use other vector databases like the quadrant or whatever you're using in your enterprise. This would I recommend to use. So now let's interpreting this message here. Please show me revenue, cost, and profit for the attributes category call center and filter for year 21, 22, call center Atlanta, and categories starting with B, and the revenue is between 200 and 100,000. So if we hit on that, it's working, it's working, it's working. Can you read that, or is this a bit too small?
Yes, I can when I
Okay, I press.
reduce the comments and make the screen big. I can read it very well, so everyone
So
else should be able to.
um, I think now it's a little bit better.
Mm.
Or
Yes, yes, yes. It's very,
okay,
very big now.
okay, that's good. So here again we have the message, and I love to log it because then we
Mm.
can save it and learn from the errors or check whether we have done were correct or not. Here we see cost and then category, the attributes we are
Mm.
asking for. Here revenue and costs. And here we need to already dig a little bit
Mm.
deeper into that because generating the filter was much more complex than generating this here. So
Because your prompt is already very well defined. You even use the word attributes inside, and I
mhm.
think for many of like business users, it would just like revenue per category, please, or
Yeah, so
something.
that's basically what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And now it works like that. Oh, this is a good point. That you, thanks for reminding me that. So here, what we are doing from the workflow is
Mm.
we are identifying the keywords and checking
Mm.
basically in our vector database or in our premise, what is that? So what is category? So here we get back the information and attribute. Then here for revenue, we find, okay, it's a metric. That means in the
Mm.
first step, we are not really using AI. We are just splitting it and trying to get as much
Mm.
as information from the message to help AI. And
And
that's
this is
basically,
the deterministic. It's not
this is
AI based
exactly.
interpretation. Okay.
So that's basically what we're doing here. We are providing our keywords to a certain object. And here we are getting back our attributes, our metrics, so what it is basically. Furthermore, we are giving some information which is called rec. Can show you that also. Bear with me a second. When it's getting too technical,
Mm.
then please
No,
warn me
no, I
because
think that's as long as there are no protesting in the comments, I enjoy it quite a lot. So everyone who wants anything else, just comment, please.
here it is. Okay,
Otherwise, you will just show the rec. Yeah, so rec is kind of this is what you use to give some context information.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what we do here is basically what we are explaining what we want to get from
Mm.
AI. And for example, it should spot and fix spelling errors. Then
Mm.
what is also very helpful was is here I can define the output structure. For example, for ranking filters, for attribute element filters. Um, this makes it quite handy, at least in context with perplexity, to ensure
Mm.
that the output structure of this JSON file is very strong. So as you can see here, element one, then I put some stuff there. it should use not in or in an element list in this structure. So
Mhm.
having basically a look at this here, then we are getting exactly that back. So, and this is the trick it works. So now we need also to distinct the different types of filters. So probably the most common ones when it comes to attributes are element filters. But we have also very common is qualification filters where we're using begin, like, or whatever. So
Mhm.
then metric filters is basically the same. And this here are some helpers for me to double check whether the attributes and metrics are correct. Questions?
So, no.
Perfect. So now let's go back to our sample. In the next step, we need to generate out of that a JSON file where we can use in combination with a strategy. So this is basically what I'm doing here. I'm calling a function. I'm saying, okay, please provide the filter section. And now it's again deterministic. So the
Mhm.
only thing here which AI is really taking over is the interpretation and the structure of this JSON file. That is really AI. And here also AI becomes help by the interpretation of all the keywords. Okay, let's click it on that. So now things are getting much longer. I give you a brief explanation of this JSON file, but I don't will dig into that much that
Mhm.
deep. So this here is the prompt ID. This is the type of expression of prompt I use. Um, type attribute, operator in, and then the IDs of all the objects I'm using. So this is the attribute here with the ID 8D something. It filters on that one here. So the next step is we are filtering on call centers. Um, here, for example, is still a small bug. It would be much better if Atlanta is only there one time. Then we are doing here the begin with operator. And here you need to ensure that the structure of this JSON fits to a REST API of your tool or whatever.
Mhm.
So thinking again to the big picture at the beginning, this would be the strategy MCP server. So
Mhm.
if you are to probably you would use go for a Power BI
Mhm.
MCP, and if you are lucky, there's already an existing one. You can just use it.
Yeah, I have
Otherwise,
seen
you can write your
afterwards.
own or convince your customers to do it or
Yeah.
partners or whatever. Oh,
Yes. Yeah, I will. So, but this JSON structure is actually the input for strategy to generate the
exactly.
cool SQL query that
To
we
answer
have seen now.
the prompt page, here I think it's a
Yeah.
very important distinction because if AI
Mm.
is doing something wrong, it's very easy for the power user, or whoever, to see that bug. I will show that later on.
Mhm.
So now here we generated the filter definition. Now we need to generate the objects which we want to see on the grid. We have them here. The final prompt, oops, something I did wrong here. Now it's better. So the final structure of the prompt answering is this file here. So
Mhm.
yeah, but what I did here basically is I brought together the JSON for the filters, JSON for the template, and then we need to transform it to a string, and then it fits to MicroStrategy. Now we can execute it. So now we can see here the data for Atlanta in Jupyter Notebook. So sometimes it happens that do not see any data here. In this case, I'm clicking here on that one, or here. So, so as you see here in the metrics, we don't have costs. So we asked in the request, we need costs, as you can see here,
Yeah.
but it doesn't appear. So why? Here it is, the right one. So something went wrong. But the good thing is humans can see directly the job of AI. And here I see the next big advantage compared to SQL generation, because to spot that in SQL would be much more complex. So now I can add here the cost metric. So to enable this bug here, I named my metric here like cost underscore one. So here we see the metric filter. And for whatever reason, the other filters appear here. This is a small bug in combination with the REST API. And if I want to modify everything, I can just go to the prompt page and do whatever I want here. So what I want to say is AI can help BI users in many ways. First of all, finding the report. In the next step, answering all the prompt page. In the last but not least, if AI is 90% correct, which is already a very good job, humans can do the rest and benefit from the pre-work of AI. Questions to that?
No, nothing from the audience. So I
Okay.
just let you.
So basically here, my backup when something went wrong.
Mhm.
Again, the same prompt
Okay.
page, whatever. So what I did here is I wanted to show a couple of
Mhm.
iterations I did for multiple user questions to show that AI is doing a good job, especially here in my case,
Mhm.
perplexity, but it's far
Mhm.
away from being 100% correct. So for example, here, it didn't spot this
Mhm.
category. So it put here categories, which is doesn't really make sense. So here, cost is written small. It checks that cost should be written big. So it spots the error.
Mhm.
Here, for the same topic, not.
Okay.
But where I was really impressed of, Perplexity is asking, okay, what do you mean with Atlanta? Call center or distribution center? Both would be
Yeah.
possible.
And it's known from the model
Yeah,
actually,
exactly.
and so this
So
is quite cool. So when you have like ambiguous KPIs in your environment, then when the AI is able like to ask you and just not show you something or make a guess that is wrong, just imagine how it would work in BI tools when you're not well informed. Then you just drag in some measure that's called revenue, and maybe it's wrong. You don't know the definition. You're not sure where the data is coming from.
mhm.
You're not here too, but AI asks you, and so you can discover it more and more.
What's also important is because in my show before, I just jumped over this question because I don't want to get into an iterative dialogue.
Mhm.
So you need to think when you are starting to ask or whether you don't ask to start. Here I said, okay, commonly it's call center, it's Atlanta, and that's it. So very simple.
Mhm.
So the same thing here below. So I was asking here, please show me cost, revenue, and profit for level of region for the top 10 employees. What I didn't put is how, by revenue,
Mhm.
by profit, or whatever. And here LLM is asking.
It forgot about revenue and cost, right? And
Mhm.
just only shows you the profit. Yeah,
That's true also.
forgot.
Yeah. Cost,
Yeah.
revenue, profit. No,
But
here
in
we
the
show the
final, okay. So, okay. Now I understand.
yeah.
So, yeah, these are the KPIs to show, and it's not included in the filter. But of course, because the ranking should be done by profit,
Mhm.
and the other two are just also shown.
But what I'm really happy is so rather
Mm.
than doing nothing.
Mm.
Itself decide to do something and profit.
Yeah.
So, and what I do think also is in the rec instructions, which I showed before, you
Mm.
can give instructions how it should behave. So basically, for ranking filters without measure, please use one of the metrics which are here on the grid. This would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. This is how you have created MCP by yourself,
exactly,
like
exactly.
like self-made MCP without sticking to the protocol because it wasn't
Yeah,
even known at this
exactly.
time.
That's true, and therefore I need to do some work to put my old code into a modern shape. But I'm really happy to do that
Mm.
because I think the way when I dig into MCP, I got a couple of
Mm.
answers which I would need have to elaborate before myself. Maybe also
Mm.
in the direction towards SQL and why I think it's so important to distinct between third-party applications or digital colleagues. So when we think about a bag, normally I always recommended customers if third-party applications wanted to have BI data, they should use their own MART, but not using really a BI tool. So
Mm.
now let's see a typical landscape here. We have our source systems. We are doing our ETL. We are putting it to lakehouse, warehouses, or whatever. And then later on, they end up in a data mart. From there, DBI tools normally are accessing. And here, if we're talking about a digital colleague, in this case, it should also use the BI tool. Some special cases, same as some power users, they need direct access to SQL, also fine. And a third-party application, if it's an old-school one, still the same. So what I want to say is that with AI agents, we could also rethink or rediscuss how these tools or agents are accessing to BI data. So
Yeah.
that was my practical part.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the presentation. So obviously the idea of yeah talking in natural language via an AI layer to BI tools was around before, and it just got some push with all this MCP stuff. And yeah, for some minutes left, I can share some thoughts on MCP and how we can integrate Power BI and Fabric in this context because you already told, okay, there's some tool agnostic part that is kind of yeah self-contained usage of AI, like visual knowledge, all this stuff. You don't need some tool specific there, but there is also yeah the idea of communicating with different tools, and you only create this JSON that is suitable for strategy to generate stuff that works very well, but you still uh, yeah it can be full automized, right? So you create a link and then you click on this link. I think I have seen it in a
Yeah,
demo.
well, as I said, so basically, whether I show the prompt page or not, this is
Yeah.
customizable. But in this use case, I wanted to show that because I also
Mm.
see here a really distinct advantage to give the users out there the possibility to check whether BI is correct or not. I mean, AI, sorry, is correct or not. BI must be correct because it can be tested. And what I also see is my always the favor was to generate reports with the report wizard I showed. But this approach wasn't really always in favor for the power users and end users because that means they had to do a lot of clicks, which they
Yeah.
don't like to do. And using MCP, using AI, we can minimize the effort and automate
Mhm.
that to 90%. So they have, on one hand, the speed, on the other hand, the flexibility. And I think this should be also the same discussions in Power BI, or is it wrong?
Yes, in some kind, yes, there is something in Fabric that kinds of closes the gap for now. It's called semantic link because a semantic link is a Python library that can be used in Fabric. Or I think it can also be used in. Not sure, not nail me on that. If you can use it in VS Code, but I think you need published semantic models in Fabric for this, and then you can just yeah, query your semantic models with code. Here's an example. I just show examples from others just due to performance reasons for today. We can make like the Microsoft deep dive. It was planned anyway to make it like in a separate session. But here's something when you can just yeah, use some DEX code to query a model because this is a workspace. It's a data set. Data set is the old word for a semantic model. And here, of course, you have some DAX query. Of course, the DAX query could also be generated by some kind of AI from a natural language, and it all
Same as with MicroStrategy or strategy, because here AI takes over the role to support the developers, I think.
yeah,
And the developers can test it, can speak to the
mm,
users. Is this what you want to have? And then
mm,
it's here.
yeah.
So I loved it.
Mm. Yeah. So finally, of course, when you say, okay, we need to uh, close the gap completely, then you have to make all this translation like on the fly and in the back end. So some kind of auto generation of reports. Yeah, it's at least it's not as easy as in MicroStrategy because out of the JSON you generated a whole report page, or yeah, at least like the form to generate
You
the
know,
visual, right?
that's one of my most
Yeah.
funny things in my professional life. So
Mm.
already at university, I loved SQL. Then I
Mm.
joined MicroStrategy, and I saw this generated SQL and was very impressed of that. So
Mm.
then, with the rise of Tableau, Click, 2010,
Mm.
2012, semantic layers, modeling data was some kind of old-fashioned, old school, or whatever you want to call that. So now, due to AI, it's cool again. And when we see, or when I see it, I think at MCP, at the
Mm.
beginning, I showed you multiple roles of MCP servers. So
Mm.
therefore, I can imagine, for example, that strategy is the tool of choice when it comes to generate SQL. And here you can evaluate, okay, in MicroStrategy, the SQL is on the fly and a better quality. So I probably don't need to pay that much for premium capacity. Therefore, I
Mm.
need to pay MicroStrategy licenses. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So
at least you can do something on their level, and you still
mm.
have the flexibility of Power BI, where it's much easier to bring together multiple databases or
Mm.
Excel sheets or whatever.
Yeah, I think for ad hoc analytics, you can also use semantic link and like talk with the data
Hmm.
as you can do in Copilot to some degree for now. Of course, there's still some room to improve
Hmm.
for Copilot, but you can use it not only to generate the decks, but also to show the results and then see what's behind the results. It's quite nice, but not as so yeah sophisticated as some crafted stuff. So when I can just join, and at first I need to select a workspace, right? And then for example, I just take this coffee fabric workspace, and then I can show me which data is related to revenue. And now we can mm, it queries the models here, but you see you are already limited to the workspace, and for now I just use it more like a search engine here and see, okay, there are some of revenues. It's not. I want revenue for Contoso. Uh, so it's not there's that. Yeah, easy. Oh, Contoso Verkäufe. Nice. It's not one of my. I think it's maybe hallucinating, but I can
But
add also some semantic model here to give him more context.
but it
So
fits
okay,
basically to the key message, I think, because
yeah,
if we read it out to a repository into more or less structured
mm,
data, we can put a report on top of that and query that. And here we see directly whether we are correct or not.
mm,
Furthermore, I think we can use AI when we read it out
mm.
everything to also to clean up. Do we
Yeah.
need the 500 revenue metrics? Probably not.
So I think from my point of view, like this experience for now, Copilot is a little bit too generic and yeah, too unstructured. Whereas yeah, that's why many people favor MCP right now. And okay, I misspelled some stuff. Let's waiting, and that's generating a DEX query. I'm really interested what will happen now. But oh, the answer may not be prepped for. But what is the answer? Okay, revenue this year. So, but I at least I don't know which what is the which year is actually meant, and I am very sure that this data model it has no data for 2025. So it just have lied to me for
Um,
now, but it's just knowledge that I have and normal business user would not have this.
even though, for example, if you spot something where a person
Mm.
know it's right, so you make a screenshot of that,
Mm.
go to another person's desk and put it on a table. The first thing will be, well, is this data correct?
Mm.
So rather if you use the enterprise standard daily revenue report and put it on the table, you won't do this question.
Mm.
And therefore, I think it's a good idea to do that.
Mhm. Here you can see it's no year filter at all here, and in some pages you see it has only data until 2020 in this Contoso demo. So yeah, it's not perfect for now. So and that's why I have some hopes in MCP, and of course I think also Copilot will adopt to this because all this MCP thing, as I told, is developed by Anthropic, so it's not an open standard, but Microsoft already implemented this in real-time intelligence. So it's another workload in Fabric that focuses on real-time analytics, and there it's already integrated. So it's kind of they accept the existence of such a standard and say, okay, you can also talk with different models. You're not limited to Claude or to Copilot for this, but you can use it with different tools. So it's the Fabric real-time intelligence already has it implemented, and here is like a short overview how to do it and how to work with this. So it doesn't solve the problem for the many other semantic models than normal Power BI semantic models. Even if you have some amazing insights like here, where Sandeep Pawar here talks with a real-time intelligence event house to get some information from Fabric. So which semantic models are there, which are actually used, and everything around this.
The
Quite
question which
fantastic.
comes to my mind now, so if it's in a repository, how long needs AI to search it around? So I think it makes anyway really sense to think how you want to link AI and BI.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
this is something that our common friend Brian Julius
Mhm.
already has shown some use cases for MCP that are worth
So
exploring
definitely. So and Brian also
because
really
yeah.
funny because Brian made me aware 2 weeks ago before I did a VE to
mm,
definitely look at MCP. And thanks, Brian, for doing that. And
yeah. Because the Anthropic web page, here are already some yeah, clients for MCP are promoted, but I noticed that some of them are. So Brian mentions some more MCP tools that are actually not listed on the Anthropic web page. That might be quite interesting, especially PBX Ray. This is some I didn't knew about that before,
mhm.
but it's a Python library that is published on GitHub where you can read the Power BI semantic models.
Oh, I definitely tried it out at one stage because that looks for me it's
Yeah.
very straightforward.
Yeah, you can read the tables, you can
Mhm.
read metadata, you can read yeah the DAX measures. So for me, it's a little bit yeah more like yeah harder to understand that semantic link because it's only a few functions and so semantic link it feels more comfortable to have the full control with a DAX query. But to be honest, I don't know if it's
Uh, you know,
not also possible here. And
the
this
question.
should work offline and not only with Fabric. I think this is the difference that Brian points out explicitly that direct access to my Power BI semantic models without even opening the files.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
So you can just grab all this information because Power BI semantic models can be viewed as a code.
Hmm.
And so the model is can be JSON or TIMDAL. TIMDAL is some kind of YAML dialect, and the visual part can be viewed as JSON. So you can like open it with like Power BI tools or some scripting or this Power BI Ray
Hmm.
to get some information from this. So for me, it seems only reading information and not changing anything, which is also different with semantic link, where you also can change if you
Well,
want.
I really think MCP and AI on top of BI it make really sense for all types of users. So for
Yeah.
developers, for power users, for end users,
Mhm.
each of them they have a completely different view. And if you bring together all the information, basically, what do we have in the lake, what in the core, what in the mart, what in the semantic layer, what in the
Mhm.
dashboard, what in maybe in data contracts. This enables us in the first step to find the information or know about it, where I find the information. In the next step, I can go there. And I think for the manager, the best thing what he can have if he finds a ready dashboard for certain questions, or then if not, semantic layer, because then he knows his data analyst will provide him the data this afternoon. Deeper in the mart, okay, I can get it in the next sprint. Then in the core, okay, it takes longer. If it's somewhere in the lake, in the first step, I need to clarify: is this data valid? Can I use it? Blah 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 blah. And the deeper it goes, the longer it will take until he has this data.
So, but think this is really a valuable post with lots of MCP enabled tools. So for me, the next step would be, of course, to continue testing with set up an MCP server. Here, Kurt Bula has a great article on this or a YouTube video, especially behind this, how he can use this with Cloud and can access Fabric with AI tools, or I think even Power BI without Fabric is possible. Would also work with Pro Workspaces, which is quite interesting also for people without Fabric. So definitely a recommendation also for me. So I mention it to make some pressure that I actually invest the learning time to do this because I believe that this is kind of a future that AI and BI will merge more and more. and it's worth to explore how you can use your semantic model artifacts and with all these new possibilities with AI. This will make the target audience definitely broad, and more people will use data because it's easy.
Definitely. And so, and for me, it's basically the same. Every day I'm learning something new because things are changing that fast. It's really hard to keep on track. You also need to concentrate on the things you are doing, and you need to do the balance basically. So,
And Kurt mentioned how he built it, but it's not open source, his project, but he referenced Santosh, who already have an open source MCP project here with JavaScript. This is there is lots of stuff that I know why I'm like a single stack guy, because I really hate all this install and on-prem software installation configuration, because Fabric just works and just. But I think at some point I have to go through this just to check it out and watch how I can use MCP with Fabric and Power BI, because there's lots of good knowledge here, and this is an open source MCP for Fabric here. I think that's all, because that's just some articles I have, but for now it should be enough. Then and then maybe one last question from me. So you mentioned Perplexity as an alternative to. So you started with ChatGPT and
oh
then you
yeah, I
switched.
think this was one of my most impressive experiences. What I did in the last couple of months. So I started with OpenAI, ChatGPT,
Mhm.
and at the beginning it did quite a good job. So my first couple of questions, I got back correct answers, more or less.
Mhm.
But then when I start with variations, the JSON which I got back was just completely randomness and really hard to maintain. So I said, okay, I'm too old for that. And then
Mhm.
I tried it out with Perplexity because I heard it's a good LLM and check.
Mhm.
All
Yeah,
my
yeah.
problems were
So
away. So
Perplexity
from
is more like a search engine, because one thing I got to know through Diana, but
mhm,
Brian mentions it too. So Diana Ackerman, the open router is
mhm,
kind of a like multi-tool subscription where you can use different models, like in a pay-as-you-go model,
yeah,
and here you can test where your prompt performs best. Diana has quite impressive results with like comparing Gemini, Claude, and
yeah. Well,
OpenAI for Power BI stuff.
I'm pretty sure if you dig deeper into that in bigger projects, the differences in small areas will be much more important and bigger.
Mhm.
And therefore, I also think it makes really sense to include multiple MCP servers into one solution. And the
Yeah.
big benefit of MCP is that you can also reuse kind of stuff, and it's much easier and clearer to develop.
Mm. Because
So,
here also Brian also has this open router featured to use different models. Yes, there is also MCP for open router. So he has not posted all the links, so I'm really not sure. I think we have to search for them for all the tools, but it's already amazing. Like the his backpack of tools
mhm,
he's already testing. Okay,
okay.
so then that was like some input and some thoughts from my side where I can maybe fit in Power BI in this, because we know at the moment your setup would need some different like technical function to translate your results into some Power BI prompt, like some. The easiest would be a DAX query, but it's hard to output to end users with just a link.
Well,
Then
I'm wondering what ways are there to answer or to set the filters of a MicroStrategy of the Power BI
mm,
dashboard automatically. So because in my what I showed only was here the prompt page. I do
mm,
know, and I've already done it. You can also set the filters of dashboards in MicroStrategy on the fly. But since I'm a
mm,
big fan of the SQL engine, I focused first on the report prompt page.
mm,
In the next step, basically, I would also include dashboards. And then from there,
mm,
basically, with the request, and we can either jump to strategy or to Power BI,
mm,
or if someone is in the audience who is doing Click, Tableau, or whatever, he's more than welcome
mm.
to ping me. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm still not sure if we really will use AI to generate report pages, or maybe it's still like the more efficient way, like Copilot tries to just output the results or also visuals, like in the chat, and then also only have references how I got this data, what was my query, like to build up this chain of trust,
Mhm.
because it's like in the Microsoft world, it's definitely easier to do it this way around, because then I would just need Python and generate queries to the model, and then you can just show the output and then only dig into the model if necessary. It's
Mhm.
also definitely possible to generate a Power BI report just with the code, but whereas Timdal as the model part is already like generally available, the report side and JSON definition of the report is not really GA for now, so it can change, and there is not much going on regarding this. So I don't have seen anyone who actually created reports with code with this, but it should be possible. So also another, yeah,
Well, I
worth
only
trying.
can talk now about a strategy and really generating a report.
Mm,
Maybe okay because you don't need to do that much visualization work. In a dashboard,
mm,
I think it's a good idea to use MicroStrategy out of the box AI because here I think this makes really sense. So I wouldn't really come to an idea to do something like that because this is tool specific. This is probably should be done, yes, with MCP servers, but from the manufacturers. So that's also, I think, a very important thought. How what you do with out of the box AI from the manufacturers and what you do yourself, because a big topic at many customers is be tool agnostic. So,
mm,
and I think this tool agnostic BI interpreter is a big step towards vendor independence. So then if you have just a link to open the pages or doing your work, it's also reducing the complexity of handling the tools, in this case for the end users. So if you dig deeper from perspective of the
mm,
developers, it's the same. So the more AI takes over, the easier it is to handle it. Looking at the automotive industry, so maybe at the beginning, each of them built everything themselves, and then they got more and more modularized. And I think this could be also a use case or scenario for BI. Why? For example, the SQL engine, maybe MicroStrategy or something else. Then for the visualization, there are already libraries which work on multiple tools. So the user is seeing less and less and less what tools are behind.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we will definitely meet again. So we both have
definitely.
some homework. I need to check out how I would do it in the Microsoft landscape, and you want to check out how you can more generalize
Hmm.
your product to, yeah, be adoptable in MCP context.
Hmm.
So far I don't have seen any like MCP clients for strategy. So it's quite
It,
pioneers work that you're
it is.
doing.
It is.
I think many are interested in this. And yeah, to everyone else, thanks for watching, and
See you
may
again
may we
next
meet
week.
again. Yes.
Okay.